What's going on, everybody, today? So today we're gonna have Gonzo from More Than the Dice podcast, and we're gonna have him talk about that whole process and kind of what he works on. So here's Gonzo. What's going on, man?
Hey,
What's going
I
on, man?
apologize if you can hear my dog in the background. I've got a 3-month-old beagle that he is in his crate, and we're crate training him, and he's just not happy that he's in there right now.
Well,
So,
it's unfortunately we deal with life here because at some point an 8-year-old is gonna come out that door. Oh, we all understand. So anyway, I found you from your podcast. So
sweet.
what is your podcast? And you have a typical kind of explain it because it is an interesting format.
Yeah. Myself and John O. Spencer used to be on another podcast, and that podcast shut down. So him and I decided we would make our own, and we decided that we would make a podcast not just on because it was mostly around War Machine and Hordes type stuff. But we decided let's incorporate all the games, and let's get a third person in here to talk about like miniature painting and stuff. So I was like, okay. So we originally, hey Mo Partnet, we originally had Seth Watkins on the show, but he had to stop and bow out. And so we asked Kathy Wapple. I blind messaged her on Facebook and said, "Hey, I like your stuff. I like who you are. Would you like to join?" And she joined the podcast. And our podcast is 3 people, and all of us are kind of like I would say a little bit experts in their area because we divided the podcast up into certain things. Even though we're all we're all geeky, we're all nerdy, we're all part of it. Um, Kathy is who I go to and people go to for painting and modeling and any type of questions like that. Um, and then John is the next issue. He's a little bit, he's a little bit more into the painting than I am. Um, but John handles like casual play and movies really well because he's a big movie buff. And then I handle conventions and competitive play because that's how that's what I go to all the time. And so um, we got together and we pretty much we pick a subject, and sometimes we don't even pick a subject. We just kind of rattle off and go, "Hey, this was in the news this week. Let's talk about this." Gaming news. Like I think we're probably going to be talking about this week. We'll probably be talking about the Paizo's union as one of our topics because the Paizo's people are making a union. But we get together. I usually stream like if I'm usually when we're doing the podcast, I'll like work on something, a model or terrain or put together something, and of course they give me tons of crap because I'm the guy that's like, yeah, I like to paint, but I like to get it done, and I like to get it done quick. So I'm like tabletop quote type, and so they're like, you're not supposed to do that, Gonzo, and like they'll give me a ton of crap for, you know, using the side of a knife instead of using the actual knife and everything, but the podcast starts off. We have a pre-ramble that's mostly for our patron subscribers, and it's just basically talking about our week. Hey, what'd you do this week? Nothing about the podcast, just so people can know who we are. Then we get on and we talk about our subject. I usually paint. Sometimes we have people come on the show. Sometimes we just have, whatever. And our last 30 minutes is our media section where we talk about movies, shows, books, music, whatever, and we have a rating system that we give it.
Oh,
And
you got
we,
to explain the rating system.
yeah, we have actually 2 rating systems. One rating system is this movie closer to Casablanca or closer to the movie Cats? Cats being the worst movie ever made, and Casablanca being the best movie ever made is what we go to. So we usually on a rating of Casablanca to Cats, where does it fit? And that's our silly one. The one we take more serious that gives us a 1 to 5 rating is we we reference the old Ice Pirates movie. If you haven't seen it, it's an old '80s, completely inappropriate movie for the nowadays. You could never make anything. Um, And so it is a rating scale of space herpes. There's a creature on the spaceship that if it bites you, it gives you herpes. And so it's called a space herpes. The more space herpes you get, the worse the movie is or worse the media is. So we rate it from a 1 to 5 space herpes.
That,
Um,
like, I didn't understand that part of it the first couple times I watched, and then I kind of figured it out over the couple weeks. Like, oh, that's not good. Not good at all.
no, yeah, it's a good running joke. It shows our age for one. So the show is horribly bad, but horribly good because of just the way it is. And of course, it was made in the '80s, so it's got tons of completely inappropriate, comments and stuff that you could never do today. But the whole um, space herpes was just hilarious. It came on a whim, and we just did it, so we keep it.
No, it's pretty entertaining once you guys start, because you're not sure which direction you're kind of going with some of the ratings.
Yeah.
So you're kind of into the board game stuff. So kind of explain why the younger generation, I think, is going to board games instead of like model cars. You know what I mean? Like
Well,
there's an interaction,
so what was funny is I had to go put in my order because for me that don't know, I'm the event organizer for Warfare Weekend and part owner, and I had to go get our T-shirts printed off. And so I went and went to the local place and was like, "Hey, these are the T-shirts design." And the lady stopped me and was like, "I need to ask you something." And I'm like, "Oh crap! Oh crap! Oh crap!" And she goes, "What is this?" And I tell her what the convention is and what we do. And I guess what I thought was like, her young daughter, which it was, comes over and starts asking me questions about board games. And I'm like, "Yeah, I know that game. I know that game." And we start talking about board games and such. And she was like, "Is there a place that we can play this?" And I'm like, "Well, there's really no club here in my area. But I mean, if you're looking for people, I'll come and play a board game with you. I have no problem." And she was like, "Well, I want to play this board game." It goes, "Oh, I've played that." And because I was, people are always saying, "Oh, board game, Monopoly, Risk, that type of stuff." And she's like, "I want a game that takes like 5-6 hours that I can spend the day with." And I'm like, "Well, I've got plenty of those." And that's the thing. And so I started talking to him, and it was funny because board games are now the new geek.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's playing board games now because board games are amazing. They're they're not just this, I'm going to collect as much money and then running off the table with Monopoly. It's I'm going to plot out my next 5 moves, backstab you, take all your money, then do it to the next person, and so on and so forth. They're very intricate in details. I mean, I have Gloomhaven. I've been playing Gloomhaven online, the computer game and also the board game. I have Scythe. I mean, I used to have a ton of board games. I took a lot of them and sold them away. But I mean, board games have gone so far from just the simple Monopoly, type thing to now they're spanning, Twilight Imperium. In 2019, we had a Twilight Imperium tournament at Warfare Weekend, Friday, Saturday, and a third game. And they took the top players from that, and then they played in a final on Sunday, because those are the things.
Yeah. Yeah, Mopar's pretty hilarious. He's gonna cut up the comments.
Yeah, it's okay. I like it. I like interaction. That's kind of how we do our podcast. We do it live all the time.
Yep.
But I mean, it's more than just rolling a dice and counting money. There's so much to board games right now, and the pieces. I just got in. I'm a huge Dragon Prince fan from Netflix. Love the cartoon, really good. They had a pre-order for their miniature board game, and I'm like, I'll do it. It wasn't too expensive. It was like $40, and you get like 12 miniatures, I think, and the board game. I'm like, yeah, cool. I like it. I'll buy it. And it's just a simple board game combat system. You choose your 3 heroes. They choose your partner chooses their 3 heroes, and you just beat each other up, and go for it. And
And
so I mean, they're more than just rolling dice and moving things around the board. Um, the miniatures are really good now. I mean, look at Kingdom Death. I mean
yeah,
that's a board game that is like the top tier, and the miniatures are insane.
well,
Type
I
thing.
mean, even like you can bring 3D printing into board games now too.
Oh yeah, there are a lot of people that have taken. I know I think it was on Thingiverse last time I saw it. The entire Catan board. People are
Mhm.
printing the entire a 3D Catan board, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. Um, you could 3D print your own miniatures. So I mean, to go with whatever you're doing.
and 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 that's why I think a lot of the younger generations kind of headed in that direction because it's got the social aspect, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, and Warhammer's the big one. I mean, they're expensive as all get up, but it's the big tabletop gaming system.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, one of the game systems, the Kings of War, you can play with whatever miniatures you have. It doesn't matter. You just got to make sure they're on the appropriate base and size, and you can play whatever. I 3D printed half of my army, and brought it to play in a tournament. I just found free miniatures on the website, on different websites, and put them on the appropriate bases and went to town. So I mean, and things like that are really really cool. Um, Now they do. Kings of War does sell their own miniatures, but they don't care. You can use whoever's miniatures you want.
Yeah, things like that, those kind of board games are really cool. But like Warhammer stuff, you have to be really careful on what 3D printed. Like you can have terrain, but you can't have the figure. There's
Actually, you can have the figures. Um,
oh, did they change it?
it's all up to the TO.
Oh, okay.
Because there was actually we had talked about this on the podcast. There was someone that won an entire tournament with 3D printed army, did not buy a single GW model, and won a tournament with it. And of course, they just printed it off with resin and an FDM printer, FDM printer, and won the tournament. And it brought to everybody's eyes that you could print an entire army and undercut GW, and it depends on the TO. Now, of course, official sanction stuff, they're like, nah, no, don't do it. But depending on where you go, some people don't care. I know a lot, for the most part, I would say a major amount of events don't want 3D printed. They don't mind if like a weapon 3D printed, for the simple
Accessories.
fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I played Tau, I needed, was it 22 of these one rifles that come on crisis suits, and they only come one towards commander pack, and the commander pack is like $50.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not buying 12 commander packs just to get 12 of those models when I need 22. So I 3D printed that gun. And I'm like, most people don't care about that because they understand that. It's almost, you can't scratch build it. And it's very iconic. And I know a lot of people are like, yeah, just give me 3D printed version of it. But I know people that, and the sad thing is, models that have just come out, like a lot of the Necron, what was it, the Void Dragon? The Necron Void Dragon was a huge model, very gorgeous. It's like $120 or whatever. And 2 days after it was shown, it was rendered, and someone had a 3D print of it already, perfect sculpt from a resin printer. And I'm like, ooh, you better not get caught.
Yeah, I mean that's the negative about
Yes.
that, right? I mean, and there is, I call that stealing.
Oh yeah, 100% is stealing.
It's
Um,
yeah,
yeah, that's 100% stealing someone's IP, and GW has every right. Any company has every right to go out there and go after them on that, because there was not like a artistic license taken with it. I mean, it was a 100% copy of that model.
yeah.
Like I said, I don't have any issue with somebody that says like an out of print model that they no longer make and no longer selling, or like weapons and such, or like armor plates. extra accoutrements. Nobody has really any issue with that because it is not taking any money away from anybody. Nobody is going to go buy 22 Tau commanders for that one weapon. Nobody.
Yeah.
Unless you're like stupid rich, nobody's going to do that. And so people, make close facsimiles of that model and will, sell it.
No, and I mean that's great points too, because there's that fine line of what is okay, and you can be totally wrong.
Correct. Well, I mean, okay, so I have recently this summer I got a new resin printer. I got the Piopli Phenom L, which is a huge printer. I mean,
How do you like it?
I love it. I mean, you can see it right there. It's as big as a freaking
Mini fridge.
oh yeah, it's a mini fridge. It's huge. I
Yeah.
can print things that are like almost 3.5 foot tall. And so a friend of mine was like, "Well, what can you print with it, and how much can you do with it?" He says, "You know what? I went on Thingiverse, and of course there is a Space Marine on there, and so I grabbed it, and it's your basic primary Space Marine. All it's missing is like the head." And I put on my build plate because the build plate is huge on this thing. I was able to print up 57. Didn't do it, but put it on the build plate, and I could fit over 50 Space Marines on one build plate. And it
Oh,
would take in roughly, I think it was like 4.5. So it probably came to 5 hours to print 50 Space Marines.
yeah. It's just
And it's ridiculous. And the cost of it would have been like $2 in materials
yeah.
because of resin. And I'm like, that's the big issue that, people are worried about. And I don't blame them. I mean, printing up 50 Space Marines in 5 hours, and then I could do it, I could do it 4 times in a day without having to, break a sweat. That's pretty ridiculous.
So you do a lot of convention stuff too, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what's the best convention to go to for?
Warfare Weekend. That's the one I own. No.
It is the event you put on.
Could I? Yes, I am the event coordinator and part owner of Warfare Weekend, and we're just kind of rebuilding it because, of course, last year we couldn't have it. And it originally started out as strictly just War Machine and Hordes, but we started branching out to like Marvel Crisis Protocol, Warhammer, 40K, and all the other stuff, just trying to branch out. But yeah, it is. So I'll always pimp mine. But if there is one convention that I have to go to every year, and if I'm able to, is Adepticon. 100% Adepticon. It is my convention that I go to.
Yeah, that's one that I would like to hit, but it's kind of, I mean, I think it's in the wrong part of the year. It needs to be towards the end of the year. But,
See, you can't put it in the end of the year because mine's the end of the year. No, it's they put it specifically around spring break.
oh, I didn't.
Yeah, a lot of schools go on spring break the week they do it. There was one year I didn't get to go because it wasn't on spring break, but usually it's around spring break when they do it, so they get a bigger crowd. So it's perfect.
Yeah. See, I didn't put that together.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a reason why it's held right around in that area is because of spring break. It's the middle of everything. It goes right before Gen Con, before LVO, or after LVO, and so it fits just right.
No, it's pretty spectacular. When
Yeah,
you see some of the stuff that's there, and
yeah, their vendor hall is amazing. Everything, the games, it's very much a gamers convention and not a corporate event. Because like if you go to Gen Con, you can feel like there's this corporate feel to it, and a corporate production value of it. And Adepticon, it feels like more the gamer convention, in my opinion. You can tell everybody's there to play games and do stuff.
Yeah, but Gen Con, they all have classes too.
Correct.
And you do a class, right? Or
I don't do a class. I was going to at Gen Con this year. I was going to do some talking about 3D printing. and setting up and talk, just like a 101 type thing. And then at Adepticon, I was going to do a 101 class, or not Adepticon, Warfare Weekend. I was going to do a 101 class, but we got way too many other painters there, and I'm like, okay, there's no spot for me to fill, so I won't do a class.
Oh, okay.
I was going to. A lot of people have been asking me. I get, which I don't have a problem with. I love it. Like, hey, what kind of printer should I get? And I'm like, all right, let's welcome to my 101 class. Get on Zoom or whatever, and let's talk and go over, what are you looking to do type thing. And I go over that type of stuff. But I mean, that's like the new norm. The price for printers is really low right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I got the Anycubic, just the regular one,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a great machine. I
Oh
just
yeah.
have to learn how to use it because I went through the one bottle of resin and only printed out like 3 things successfully, But I mean, there's a learning curve to it,
Oh
and
yeah.
like I want to get and even right now the cure station and the wash
Mm-hmm.
station or whatever. I need to get those too, but
Yeah.
yeah,
They I started with the Anycubic Photon S was my first resin printer. I got that running. It was working really well. Learned how to set models up. Learned how to do everything I needed to do with that model. That type of thing. Hey Sarah Jane. And I got it all set up, and I was like, okay, this build plate, which is nice, but is too small. And so I went with I got my, my Phenom L.
mhm.
And that's where I started printing. And I 3D printed Loki's crown. I mean, this took 5 hours to print.
Yeah,
So,
no,
I mean, that was, and then I was like, that's not even the biggest thing that I can print on it. I haven't even tested it out, but I mean, that one's kind of an industrial type thing. It was a gift from somebody with a little bit of pocket money for myself. It was kind of my birthday gift, but and then I have, of course, my Ender Pro 3 or Ender Pro type stuff. So I mean, it all just depends. I mean, like the Anycubic Photon S, I think you can get them for less than 200, like 150 now, depending on where you go. You catch
yeah,
them on sale.
yeah, they've got them on sale right now, I think, and you can get one for under $200, which is ridiculously cheap compared to what they were 2 years ago.
Oh yeah, and I mean you can print near perfect models. I mean, this I printed on.
Hold on.
I'm
Oh,
trying to
there we go.
get it to. Oh, my camera's backwards on that. Let me see. I mean, it's a near perfect model.
No, yeah,
You don't find any lines, nothing.
that's a Horde model, right?
No, this is actually from a company. I can't remember which Patreon I was part of.
Oh, okay. It looks like the Wolves faction.
Yeah, the werewolves. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Circle Orbos. No, it was part of some Patreon reward. But you can print near the Photon S. Print perfect miniatures. Once you figure it out and you've got it set up and you've got everything going, you can print anything and it can come out perfect. And that's what a lot of companies are afraid of right now, which don't blame them. GW is one of them, of people, taking their stuff, because you could actually print off a Space Marine and no one would be able to know the difference.
No, absolutely not.
No.
If you got, yeah, and like you get figures like this, like the Goro from Mortal Kombat from Xanax.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is I mean, I didn't clean up the joints or anything in it because I did it on my CR10, but the resin version of this is perfect.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's crazy what you can do with.
Oh yeah.
And
it's really not hard as people think. Once you learn how to do supports, and most models, if you do a Patreon, their models come supported already.
Yeah.
So it's just put it in your slicer, slice it up, and go to town, and just get it done. And usually their supports are super super good. So
No, it is really crazy on all the figures like and stuff you can get off Thingiverse.
oh yeah,
Thingiverse is by far the coolest thing in the last probably 2 years because it went from like really basic shapes
mm-hmm.
to like full figures that look absolutely amazing now.
Oh
Because
yeah.
people are just, they're
I mean,
just
I
loving
printed
them.
up like I said, the Loki crown. I found that on Thingiverse. I printed off a bunch of like samurai masks. Those were free off it. I mean, type thing. There's a ton of stuff you can get off Thingiverse for free. I'll have other people call me all the time and says, "Hey, can you print this off for me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Just pay me materials and time, and I'll be good with it." Because
Yeah.
usually, like, I print up a bunch of stuff for people, and I never charge what I'm supposed to. I'm like, just pay me for my time and pay me for my materials. Um, Terrain is the newest thing because everybody's wanting terrain for like Marvel Crisis Protocol and 40K and all the games that require terrain. And I'm like, yep, I can do that.
So the Marvel Protocol, how is that game?
Marvel Crisis Protocol is a really good game. Um, it is very much like you're playing in a comic book. You can pick up buildings and throw them at people. Your
Oh,
game
really?
changes uh, every time you play. Um, they're they've got a ton of models already, so it's kind of hard to. Some people are complaining that it's kind of hard to get into right now because there is so much, and everybody like all geeks, we want to buy everything, and this is of course all Marvel stuff. I've actually had to tone myself back and not buy everything.
Yeah.
I'm only sticking to certain factions. I'm only going to be playing Asgards and X-Men, and so the more X-Men come out, the more money I'll spend. But it's a good game. But I mean, you have to have 3D terrain. So
Oh, wow. That's 3D printed?
yeah, yeah. This was I can't remember who I got the file from, but this is just one of the buildings. It's in four pieces: bottom, top, and then the roof. And I'm working on this. This is one of the pieces that I'm going to be putting together that I'm painting up for our finals table at Warfare Weekend for Marvel Crisis. There's that. Um, I have PlayStation that I'm putting together.
PlayStation. What is that?
No, police.
Oh,
Police.
police station. Okay.
The PlayStation that I'm building and painting up, getting that ready. Um, there's like this gas station. I just started dry brushing everything and getting it all together
Yeah, those
and
look
set.
really cool. Is that resin or PLA?
That's PLA. This is just off of my Ender 3.
No, I mean it's really cool. And you just primed it. You didn't have to sand any of it.
No, I took these and it's not even. I mean, you can see layer lines. You can see a little bit like that there, and like right in here.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not enough that it's worth sanding and spending time with because it's a piece of terrain. It's just going to be sitting there. It's gonna look pretty eventually. But I
Well,
mean,
and the cool thing with PLA is if you set to the lower or the 0.06 instead of 2, those lines just disappear after primer.
oh yeah, yeah. Once you get your thing dialed in, it's not going to be an issue. I mean, you're not going to have any huge major layer lines and everything. You're just going to just go with it and let it go. It does take a lot longer, of course. So it was like what people were telling me, what's the difference between the resin and the FDM and PLA type stuff as well. The thanks, Sarah Jane. Um, the um, the time because PLA you could put as much as you want on the build plate of the Ender Pro, and the more you put on there, the longer it's going to take.
Yeah.
On a resin printer, you can put 50 billion things, and it all just depends on the height. Depends on how long it takes. Like I can put 50 Space Marines on my Phenom, and it'll take 5 hours. If I try to pack 50 Space Marines on my Creality, that would take 3 days
Or a
to
week.
do. Yeah, or a week. The longest I've done is I've done a 4-day print. Some of the stuff I've done was like let's see, it's a 24-hour print. Oh, I'll take my hat. So a couple of the things, like I did a 24-hour print. Everybody was into Japanese masks at one point.
Yeah, that looks really cool, dude.
And this one was like a 24-hour print that I painted up. I wanted this one kind of like a terracotta look. And then
You've made a couple of those, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's the one I've seen. Okay.
Yeah.
No, those are really cool.
Yeah, and these took 24 hours. I mean, you can see the back of it. You can see a little bit of layer shifting, but it's like so minute that it's not even, you don't even care.
So have you ever been on GameBody.com?
No.
It's GAM Body. Right now they have like the Bane mask from the Christian Bale Batman series.
Gotcha. Yep.
Darth Vader, Mortal Kombat ones that you can print out. I've done some of them. They have the Immortal Joe. I've done that one. That one's pretty cool.
Yeah, I have. I do have a Sub-Zero mask over there that someone wanted me to print for them.
Yeah, but those are free because they were for the COVID stuff, right?
Yeah,
that was their attempt to be productive, right?
Sarah Jane, the masks that I printed up, they were just because I did it because it looked really cool, and then after I did it, I was like, oh, let me paint this up because it looks cool. Yeah. And then after I painted it up, people are like, hey, can you print that for me? I'm like, yeah, sure. Pay shipping and, the materials, and I'm good.
Yeah, see, here's the Immortal Joe one.
Yeah.
I mean, I printed this way too large, but, because, I mean, this would fit Shaq.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Which I found a very cool. There is an app on your phone if you have like one of the iPhones or anything that does facial recognition.
Mm-hmm.
There is an app that you can download, and you like hold the camera and you 3D scan your head. And so it takes your head and 3D scans it, puts it into an STL. So when you go and you put a mask on there, you put your head on there first, then you put the mask, and then you can resize the mask to your face.
Are you serious?
Your helmet. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, that's what. Because I'm working on a couple of cosplay items. So like the Loki crown, because I also did Sylvie's crown from the TV series. I scanned my friend's head and put it in there, and then put the crown and resized it based on the 3D scan.
No, that's really cool. I really like that idea.
Yeah. Well, it saves the time, so you don't have to measure it. You can just 3D scan your head, and if it's off by a little bit, you can shape it because it's resin or plastic.
No, yeah. No, I mean, half the time you kind of have to, like, I use Cura, so it's like you have to guess.
Yes.
And it's like, oh well, I just wasted that roll of filament.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, what I've done for Cura
right now, but
is I actually found a ruler STL that I put into Cura, and then I use that ruler to flip it around and do whatever I need to get a better idea and measure the millimeters, because I bought a bunch of millimeter rulers because I'll look on there and see what Cura says. All right, this is 75 millimeters long. I'm like, okay, 75, type thing. But scanning the 3D head has been the best thing ever.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, that's a cool app. And what's the name of that app?
The app, if you have to purchase it if you want to do it all the time, but if you get one free scan like a week. It's called Scandy Pro.
Scandi Pro.
Like Candy Pro, but with an S at the front of it.
Huh.
And so you get to do that.
Oh,
But
that's
I
really
mean,
cool.
so I mean, that's what I've been using to like sort heads because I had built a Mark III version of Iron Man's helmet, and that's what I used to do it. Just resize it. That's what I did for the Loki crown type
No,
thing.
yeah, that's really awesome. And like I've got this big melon of a head, so it's like it's really hard to like what will fit you probably is too small for me.
Yep.
And then on the other flip side, then you make something that's as big as for Shaq.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. So I mean, it's really good because once you scan your head, you're done. You don't ever scan your head again unless whatever reasons. But usually you scan your head and you're done with it, and you've got it and you're there. So like if someone comes up and says, a friend of mine, she was like, "Hey, I want this crown," and I'm like, "Okay, let me scan your head." And so I scanned her head all over so I could get 3D rendering of it, and we were good to go.
So let's talk about the figure painting side of it for a little bit. Okay.
Okay. What do you want to know?
What's the coolest thing you've painted? Nah, come
on. Lately, so I consider myself just an average painter, but I do try different techniques.
Well, we're all average to Kathy and Jim.
Oh God, Jim is he's the Bob Ross of miniature painting. I love him. He is such an amazing man.
They've both been on here too. You just got to look back far enough. Yeah, you can find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Kathy is completely amazing. Of course, that's the reason why I have her on the podcast. I have painted a few BattleTech models because BattleTech is actually becoming very popular right now, which is kind of amazing because I remember playing that 20 years ago.
Yeah, the video
and
game, right?
Yeah, and so now they're coming back, and I just have some simple BattleTech models. I'm trying to get my camera to.
Oh yeah, those are.
Well, now that they're all plastic and easy to get, people are not easier to get, I should say. But I mean, they're quick and easy to paint up. I did paint up some Infernals. The last model I spent a lot of time on was two of them. A Warcaster model where I'm using a color shift paint. If I can.
Which color shift? Which brand of color shift paint?
The color shift I'm using on these is green stuffs, cobalt blue, because it goes from blue to purple, and I wanted that. And then this was a 3D print I did, and then painted up. Camera just does not want to. Let me see. No, it's not going to do it. But this was a 3D print that I painted up with contrast paint. The entire model is done in contrast paints.
That's so cool, dude. That's not easy to do by any means, and contrast makes it easier. But
I love contrast paints.
Yeah,
I think they're amazing. Like all my Marvel Crisis Protocol models are being painted up in contrast paints, every single one of them. I made it a challenge to because contrast paints came out kind of similar when MCP came out, and so I was like, you know what? I'm going to challenge myself, show people that we can use these as straight paints. And so all my Marvel Crisis protocols are done in contrast paints.
So have you seen the new Army Painter stuff that's supposed to be similar to that yet?
I haven't. I heard about it, but I haven't gotten it yet. Money.
Yeah, I just Army Painter is kind of what I use. I don't use the GW stuff. I do have a little bit of GW stuff, but I just bought the skin tone set the Army Painter got. I got the Mega set, and then I'll probably get certain colors of the Speed Paint set. But yeah, it's crazy what all the different types of paint there are now, huh?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I like that they did contrast paints because there's people that want to play with a decent looking army, but
Mm-hmm.
don't have a ton of time and don't have a ton of skill or the patience to paint 50,000 Space Marines.
Or time. That's the other one. It like cuts time down in half. At least for me.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, this one I took a lot of time with because I was doing it during the podcast, and I mean, I actually supersized it a little bit. My Yak Monk, and you know, you prime it the white that you want, and then you just go with it. The only thing that is not contrast paints is the gray on the base and the metal on his shaft. Everything else, even this gold right here, is actually contrast paint. It's yellow over silver, yellow contrast over
okay.
silver.
Well, that's cool.
That's what I did for like my Iron Man. But I mean, it was a 3D print. It looked really cool for a Patreon I was part of, and I was like, print it off, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna print this all as contrast paint and do some cool stuff with it.
So, what are some of the tools that you like to use for putting figures and stuff together?
I use typically your good old fashioned Loctite super glue. um, type thing. Typically, my paints range from scale 75, P3, Army Painter, GW, my paint section.
So, explain the dome.
Oh,
Like,
my lights. So I've been dying to get an arc light for my table. So of course I stream, so I need to have good lighting, when I'm painting the miniatures. This was 24. The lights were like $24 off of Amazon, and these metal strips were like $5 at like Lowe's. So it was like maybe $40 for the whole thing. Let me turn off the lights.
what? But the cool thing is, like, you get the right light, or even for under that, it's the right light for when you go outside, when you go, and it totally makes a difference.
Yeah, I mean, because I can set how bright and everything it is, and it's a daylight type thing, so I can definitely see what I'm working on.
Yeah,
type thing. Yeah. But I mean, it was super super easy to do. I'm all about easy and cheap. But like those lights, I got them off of Amazon, and the strips, and all I did was put industrial strength Velcro on the feet. So if I ever have to move them, all I gotta do is take the Velcro off and just walk away with it.
Oh, that's cool.
So, and because like I looked at so many tutorials on how to do it, and they were like, yeah, it cost me, $175. I'm like, no, I think I can do better than that. And I think it only cost me like maybe $50 to do it. But I mean, I have, one of the little cut mats underneath it. I do have one of the new wet palettes that came out that I haven't used yet. And I have just cups of water. All the paints that I have, I actually built the rack for those. I 3D printed my paint racks. I found one on Thingiverse for free, and it holds every single type of paint pot out there.
I think I got you to send me that. It's actually a pretty cool setup. I haven't printed it out yet because I just haven't been that brave yet. But it's kind of like if you look at it, it's you can extend it both ways. Yeah. You may not be able to extend the corners, but the straightaways are totally.
Oh yeah, I think that's a total of 16 prints to do it. Took me like $40 in material, and I think it takes about roughly 20 hours for each piece. Yeah. But I'm like, I don't have to worry about it. I just I didn't have to buy one or anything. I just printed it off and good to go type thing. But I mean, for the most part, I try to paint when I can. I'm not like John Spencer with his hobby streak. John O. Spencer has been doing a hobby streak. Um, he's had a thing where he tries to do something hobby related every day. And you have to start over your hobby streak number if you don't do it. So I think I got up to like 25, and then I was like, I have other things I have to do or life or whatever. And so I've had to start over. I think John, last time I saw him, he was like 1,300 and something days straight. I
That's
think is what
like
it was.
5 years, 4
Yeah,
years.
he's been doing it for a long time. Let me see. He did post on our Facebook page the last one. Hobby streak day 1,410 is what
Yeah,
he's on.
I mean, almost over 3 years, at least over 3 years.
Yeah.
That's
He's been
great.
keeping it up. It's just it's one of the things he does to, keep him motivated doing stuff. Um but um I am kind of weirded because I'm in between projects now. Like I said, I'm gearing up for Warfare Weekend, so I'm getting a lot of terrain painted, so I haven't been able to do anything for myself. Um but I have a ton of BattleTech models I need to paint. Of course, a ton of Infernals from Privateer Press that I have not even touched near any of them. And some heavy gear models that I need to put together because one of our local groups is doing a heavy gear thing, and I'm like, yep, I can do with that. So I just haven't had time.
Yeah, I get that way too. Life just kind of kicks you in the teeth every so often and be like, "Hey, you need to settle back down."
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, I'm also like I said, one of my primary job is I'm a special education teacher, and so that takes up a good portion of time. I'm there, 8+ hours a day, and then after work and parent teacher conferences and so on and so forth. So I mean, I try to get something in, and then of course I got social stuff I have to do, and you know, playing video games when I should be painting models.
Yeah, it's crazy on how many little hobbies that every person has after time.
Yeah, it's just what everything comes through. But I mean, I don't. I never want to be a competition type painter, um, type thing. That's just not who I am. I just want to make it look good.
You know what? That contrast paint figure you showed, you
Mhm.
should enter that to see how well you do.
It wouldn't do that good when you get close inspection on it because there's actually a part that I miss painting, and I'm
Oh,
like,
really?
I'm not gonna do that. But I do like the contrast paints. I know a lot of people that will paint more because of contrast paints.
Hmm.
Contrast paints are just they're they're a great tool for someone that's been painting with like acrylics all their life, and learning how to do it and using the contrast paints as washes or whatever. But um, for people that are just like now getting into games, and of course everybody's super busy, you could do an entire army in contrast paints in no time flat. You'd be really surprised. Um,
I, I think where contrast paint helped me is how to get the consistency right.
mhm.
Because you don't have to have it quite that liquid, but if you're somewhere close to that, paint just goes on so much easier.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think for this model when I did his because the first thing I did was the brown robes, and I think it took me 3 minutes to paint the robes,
Yeah, no,
just the brown part of the robes. And I mean, it didn't take me long to do much of this. This went by super quick and super easy. Because you get your base colors and then you can go back and go, oh, I want to add this or I want to add that. But I mean, this really took no time at all compared to a lot of stuff. Um, I don't think I have any of my MCP near me, but like the all the like my Iron Man, I primed him black, um, then put a very shiny metal over the top of them, and then washed and then painted them with contrast color. and so it looks like a metallic, colored metallic. Super, super easy.
Oh, so you're putting like a gray or silver base coat.
Silver, yeah, a very, very bright metallic, and then you paint it over, and it looks like colored metal, which is really, really good. So I mean, if anybody starts anything, I'm like, if they're brand new, I says try contrast paints out first. You'll be very surprised how it is. Hey, thanks, Sarah Jane. But I mean, like this model right here, the Warcaster model that I painted up, I gotta lie, this took me, it took me probably 10 minutes to paint up because I primed it black, airbrushed the color shift paint, and then put white over it where I wanted the color shift green to go on. And that was it. And it turned out quite amazing. And then I painted out black on some parts just to make it, a little bit different. Some flat black just to make it stand out.
So what paintbrushes are you using to use some of that stuff?
Well, the color shift, I always do. Let me see if I got another one. I think I got another one over here. This was my first one that I did to test it out. So we can get him head.
That's crazy.
And I mean, it was straight color shift. The color shift was done. Come on, my camera's backwards. It was done with an airbrush. I had to do an airbrush because it makes it so much easier when you do an airbrush. Which way? I'll just set my camera up a little bit different and not do it. So with color shift paint, you really, really, really have to airbrush it on. If you don't do an airbrush, it will streak really bad.
So time out a second. What did you airbrushed it?
Yes. So you just took, I just used a simple Badger airbrush.
Okay.
Patriot 101. And you just put it straight in there. No thinner, nothing, and you airbrush it over a shiny black.
You're not adding anything to it. You're just airbrushing it.
Yeah. So airbrush that over it. And then of course I paint over white where the green stuff looks, so it'll be. And I use the color shift green, or not color shift, the contrast green, to give it that glow, whatever type look. And it didn't take long to get those done. Those are super easy and super quick. Brushes I use, I have Army Painter brushes. I have some Kolinsky Sables. I have, who did somebody sent these and I haven't had a chance to use them. Redgrass Games. They're one of our sponsors of Warfare Weekend, and they sent me a bunch of their brushes to test out on the podcast and their new wet palette, their everlasting wet palette, to be precisely.
Is that the one that's really popular?
Yes.
How do you like that?
Or I haven't had a chance to use I've used their wet palette, but I haven't used their Everlast wet palette yet. I got a pre-release of their Kickstarter, and I think it's out by now. But it is a wet palette, and not the paper that you put in there. Usually once you're done with it, you throw it away. This one, you could use it over and over. You just wash it off.
Oh, that's different.
So you can actually wash off. I haven't had a chance to use it. Like I said, I haven't had a chance to really paint in a while. Mostly it's been this, working on terrain. And, don't need a wet palette for terrain, in my opinion. You just put it on and go. But I have it set up pretty much after the convention. I will probably be working on some more painting. I have an entire Battletech star that I need to paint up, and I'm going to be doing it in red. And I'll probably airbrush all those red and then go with it from there. But I have some other models I have to work with. But the palette's great. It's got, attachments you can put on it on the left and right and stuff. So you can put little wells to mix paint in and such. I mean, it's a
No,
good size one too.
that's awesome. I've heard good things about it. I just haven't talked to anybody that's actually used it.
Yeah, I haven't used it either. It's kind of sad, but I haven't had a chance to use it yet either. They sent us a bunch of wet pallets to give away for the convention, and they were like, we want you to have one too, and so they gave me one. I'm like, it's like super ecstatic. So they gave me that.
So that's cool. So is there any other tools that you use for the hobby?
Besides your X-Acto knives, paint, um, I'm always good for testers. Matte sealer. That's my thing. Testers, matte sealer.
Oh, is that the dull coat one?
The dull coat, yeah.
That stuff works so good.
That stuff is amazing. I don't care what anybody says.
Well,
I will
the
use that over
model car
anything.
guys that are in the thing, they'll testify to that.
Yeah, that's my favorite. My primer that I use, if I'm not doing like my terrain pieces, I just use rattle can primer. But usually I airbrush Stynylrez. Res.
So
Res is my favorite.
what kind of rattle can paint? Because even some of the GW and Air War Army painter, they have rattle can paint. Which ones you use?
Usually it is the Rust-Oleum. Like if I'm doing terrain, especially if it's an FDM print, I just use the Rust-Oleum whatever primer they have. Like all of these things, was primed with rattle can paint. Rust-Oleum. I think this is the Rust-Oleum Brick Red.
Are you doing filler primer first?
No, it is nice and thick enough that I don't even have to do it.
Oh, I'm gonna have to get some of that stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, like I mean, you can see, if you look on the top, you can see some of the very thin lines. But I mean, it's minuscule. It's not even worth doing. Now, let me see. I don't know if you can see it, but you can kind of see on the nose. This right here, you see the little ridges. That's where But I was like, I'm not going to sand that down. It kind of looks like wood grain. Like, forget it. Just leave it like that. No, for most of my large pieces, I use the Rust-Oleum primer because it's pretty thick and it fills gaps pretty easily.
No, that's really, really cool. I didn't really, and a lot of people don't know that, but some of the Citadel, the Army painter, they have rattle can paint.
Yes. Yeah. Usually, for the most part, it's Stynylrez black black or white that I airbrush on. But if it's like large pieces, like I said, of that, like the Loki crown, that was just rattle can, Rust-Oleum primer. Makes it a whole lot easier.
Really cool.
Got to make it cheap. I pull.
I understand because I'm part of the Broke Modeler Society too.
Yep.
Gotta
make it easy. Gotta make it cheap. Because you go through stuff like crazy. But most of the parts, if it's a 3D print, resin 3D print, I just use, Stynylrez through my airbrush. I know like Kathy always, she's like, I just brush it on. And I'm like, I know, but I'm not you, Kathy. I want to do it easy and quick.
Well, I mean, Stynylrez, right? I wouldn't do it with anything else. But Stynylrez, I mean, you can brush it on and it'll lay completely flat.
Yeah.
And it works. But, it's.
Do I make my own washes? Yeah, it depends. Usually, I mean, I have a plethora of paints that I've collected over the years, and people have given me paints. And if I don't have the right color, I will make my own washes. But it's usually just at the time. I was painting up. I can't remember what the name of the game was, but I made these skeletons. The skeletons were, I didn't want to do bone color, so I made my skeletons have red bones. And they were kind of a darker red. And so I had to make up an even darker red wash for it and everything. And that I had to make my own for that. But I mean, if it's a particular color, usually I do. I do use the contrast bone. Well, I can't remember the actual name of it as a good flesh wash. on models. It does really well for flesh.
Now, see, I've gotten the contrast medium,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I use to make some of the washes I've been using lately.
Yeah.
But I also like using some of the glazing mediums and stuff to
Yep.
make washes, and I almost think the contrast medium is glazing medium.
Some other ones that I used.
It's a lot alike.
I like the clears from Reaper. The clears from Reaper are really good. I've been using. Where's my clear purple? Oops, did I drop one? Yeah, the clear purple. They make some really good paints for that. Because I have my infernals are a purple pink, and I use the clear purple on a lot of stuff. So I mean, usually most of the time I don't have to make it. I just usually get whatever I get and go, yep, this will do.
No, and that's the cool thing with some of these hobbies is the shortcuts that you figure out over time.
Oh yeah. Like I said, I mean, dry brushing. Dry brushing is an amazing technique. Don't let anybody tell you any different. Whenever I take and get, I want to do a model really well. I prime it black, dry brush it gray, and then dry brush it white so I can get the highlighted areas and then use the clears on that. But all these buildings, these were primed, orange and red, and then I dry brushed and I took the black spots. I just took the spray can and went really far away. But like the buildings, this building, besides the spray on primer, it's taking me no time at all. I mean, I'm going to go back and paint like the air conditioner vent.
Yeah.
So, and then I'm going to paint the windows kind of blue, and whatever, just to make it kind of stand up. But I mean, you find out whatever you can do to make it quick and easy. Old, yeah. I'm old and don't have enough time to do everything.
Yeah. Being a production worker, I totally like some weekends. It's like I don't want to do a damn thing.
Oh yeah,
edge.
Oh yeah. When I get home from teaching, I'm just like, I don't think I want to do anything. Well, no, I got to get up and go paint the train because the convention's only like 2 weeks away. Got to get it done. And then I get started and I'm on there for, I'm on it for, 7-8 hours. And I'm like, oh, I need to go to bed and get it done.
So I generally try to keep it, hour and a half.
Yeah.
But we're at the segment where you get to ask me anything you want.
Okay. How did you find out about More Than Dice?
Kathy,
was she streaming?
I looked. So I was following James, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, which everybody should, by the way. He's an amazing guy.
Yeah, if YouTube or Twitch.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. He puts videos on YouTube at some point.
Yeah.
But I looked up James and then I looked up Kathy and then it brought up and I was like, so I watched a couple of them and I was like, okay, all right. Okay. So I followed and then I started watching live a little bit. I don't get to watch them all because it's Sunday, it's family, weekends. I try to spend as much time with the family as I can, but life.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's how I found you was Kathy. And then you started doing 3D printing and started to show some of the stuff you were doing. So I hit you up on Facebook.
Uh-huh.
I wanted that paint rack. And there was a couple other things. I mean, we've talked a little bit back.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I originally found you was through Kathy.
Yeah, we usually get that because there's a reason why I called her and said, hey, I want you on my podcast, blah, blah, blah. One, she's a great community person. She's an amazing community person. She's all about the people. She's not there to make a buck. She's not there to, try to
Heck,
take
she
a buck.
gives you hundreds of dollars if you watch her
Yeah.
episodes long enough.
Yeah. I mean, you can get, and she'll stop and do stuff. She'll stop and go. Somebody was like, well, how do you do blue? She'll put a model down. This is how you do blue, and we'll show you. That's the reason why I contacted her, because of everybody's comments and everything. I was like, yep, this is what we should do. She's amazing. I love her to death. My friend John, he's my my even keel. He's like, Gonzo, you're going a little too hard on this. Slow down. I'm like, damn it, type thing. But yeah, which is funny because we were talking about going to conventions, and like we're on episode 191 this weekend.
Oh,
So
nice.
tomorrow's going to be our 191th episode. And before the pandemic hit, I went to Adepticon, and I had these little dice that had our logo on it. And I told everybody that, if you see me, tell me, hi, who I am, whatever, mention more than dice and I'll give you a dice. I ran out of dice in the first 15 minutes walking through Adepticon because everybody came up to me and they were like, you're Gonzo from More Than Dice. And I'm like, it's kind of weird to sit there and have someone say that. Because, we only have typically, 15 to 20 people watch us live, which is great. I love that. I love interacting with people. But we do, we leave the up there and we do convert it into audio. And then we get on our audio streams, we get like 400 to 500 people listening. And we really don't, it's interesting to hear that. And someone came up and go, hey, I recognize your voice. I'm like, okay, do something. I'm like, I have a podcast and, I hang out and do some RPG stuff online. He says, I'm like, do More Than Dice with Kathy and John. And they're like, oh yeah, that's where I know you're from. Yeah. Now I recognize you. So, I mean, it's kind of weird, that celebrity thing that comes about, but I mean, it's great. I mean, to some people come up, I like your podcast because you're not super serious. You don't take anything you do serious. You'll have a good time. Y'all are stupid funny. So I'm like, good. That's what we want.
Oh yeah, it's totally a good time if you can actually sit down and watch the whole thing. Like, and it's not a podcast where you can like watch the first part, then like a couple days later listen to the second part. Like, you almost got to watch the whole thing through because
it was one time. So we get together 30 minutes before the podcast starts to make sure technology works, because it never does. And so I released like this blooper reel one day, and it's John and Kathy testing out sounds. I was like, all right, test out the sound, make sure everything's going correct, because I do all the streaming on my machine. And I get them doing, singing songs. It was the Muppet Manamana type thing. I got them doing that and released that, and just a whole bunch of just blooper type of stuff.
Oh,
but,
man.
Yeah, we have a good time. We actually have to stop talking to each other a little bit on our 30 minutes, because like there's so many times Kathy and John are like, this is really good material to put on the podcast. I'm like, then shut up. But
no, that happens. Like,
so,
even the pre thing for this, it's like you I got to get you in here, kind of go over what we're gonna do, and then like it's quiet time.
Oh yeah. Don't say anything. Okay, you're good to go.
Yeah.
So I noticed. I mean, I know the last name, Ryzen Design, but why design?
Just for the hell of it. You just keep it just other than my full name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I just chose that. I mean, I could have done anything really, but I just went with that. It kind of works, so
it sounds like it is. I mean, it's like More Than Dice. We went over like 15 different names, and we went with that one just for the simple fact that our podcast is more, because usually podcasts at the time when we started were all about tech builds, building the perfect lists to do whatever, and building the perfect, number crunching list to win whatever. And we were like, yeah, but we do more than just number crunching and more than dice rolls. And so that's how it came about. It was More Than Dice came about because we were We cover all aspects of the gaming tabletop, from social gaming to competitive gaming to hobbying and stuff. So yeah, I get that all the time. Why more than dice? I'm like, because we do more than dice. And then we go through the story of just,
Yeah.
at the time when podcasts in the tabletop community was coming out, a lot of them were just tech podcasts. How to maximize your perfect list, how to, be super competitive. And we were like, I'm a competitive player, but I'm not like minute, like I figure out percentage chances of, every model I have. And that's kind of where it went with. So kind of cool type thing.
What's your next question?
What are you 3D printing now?
Nothing. And no, my CR10, I think you can see it. It's like right there.
Yeah.
Background. The motherboard or the battery supply broke.
Oh.
So it turned off. So yesterday or Wednesday, I went and got a CR10 version 2 for $200. And I got like all kinds of filament and stuff with it. So I really, it's like $400 or $500 printer.
Oh yeah.
For like $200. I couldn't just, I needed something right now. Unfortunately, I just haven't been able to set it up. And then that one is going to be probably spare parts. Cause I mean, it's almost 5 years old. So I might try to fix it. I mean, it's CR10 is just a beast.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I've had to replace the nozzles, the fan. I mean, stuff breaks.
Your maintenance, yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the things where I was talking to a friend of mine. He got into 3D printing, and I was like, go buy extra nozzles. You're going to need them. Go buy an extra fan. You're going to need them because those are just wear and tear parts, especially nozzles. Those brass nozzles wear out so quickly.
Believe it or not, I didn't replace the nozzle in that. Well, I broke the little wire thing, which is why I had to replace the nozzle at some point. But I got probably 2.5 years out of the first nozzle I ever put.
Ooh, that's really good.
Out of the stock one that came with it. And like, there's a lot of people that are like, well, how the hell did you do that? Like, I don't know. That's kind of production work. So I've ran machinery, so I'm really good at that. But no, like some of the stuff I have printed though is like this.
Nice.
That's off Thingiverse.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I painted it up. I mean, it's like I sanded the crap out of this thing to get it smooth, but And then there's that Goro thing. Here's one of the resin figures I actually got to print was the Goro, full size. And then I have a Warlord Titan that I've been working on, and that's this thing.
Yep.
The legs is the bottom half, but this is just the upper body, and this is full size. This was on Thingiverse, and it's not anymore.
Yep.
Oh
yeah.
So
they've been quick to take stuff off whenever it's there. But I mean, yeah, like that the Warlord Titan, I've seen. I was a part of a group, and someone had the Warlord Titan, a certain Warlord Titan up there to print, and they used a resin printer, and it took him roughly 2 days to print an entire Warlord Titan on a resin printer that he had. And the amount of materials would probably, I think he said it was like $10 worth of material. And I go, that's the reason why 3D printing, you've got to be careful with it.
Yeah. Like,
now, I mean,
that one, it took, because it's off my CR10, right?
Mm-hmm.
It probably took me 9 months to print out all the parts.
Oh, yeah.
Because some of them are like 2-3 days.
Oh, yeah. That's what people, that's when people talk to me about what they're printing. I'm like, you got to tell me what you're wanting to print and how big and what type of detail you want. I mean, if you can do a resin printer, what are you trying to? Are you just trying to print miniatures? Yeah, fine. You can get like your Ender Pro, their Creality, um, your Phenoms and all that stuff, or you could get what is it? Um, the one that you have. My mind's blanking now.
10?
No, your
Anycubic.
resin. Yeah, the Anycubic S or whatever, and you'll be fine to print whatever you want.
Yeah.
And then people are like, "Well, I want to do things like a Titan." Well, you're going to get a bigger resin printer. Or you're going to have to do FDM type thing.
Well, I mean, the resin stuff. I mean, you can't do it on the Anycubic, but there's the bigger. Like they get a little bit bigger as you go along.
Yeah.
So you don't need like the one that you have that's a fridge.
Yeah.
You
yeah,
can
there are
get,
some that are a little bit smaller.
but some of the part, like the file that I have, the parts are almost small enough. I could probably do most of them on the Anycubic.
Yeah, depending on who built it and how it's done. Yeah, there's quite a few. I mean, I printed off. I don't think I have it anymore. The Necron flyer, the scythe or whatever it is, it's about yay big or whatever. Yeah, I printed that off of my Anycubic, and it came out perfect. So I mean, it just all depends. Big pieces, like I can print off a full size Iron Man helmet off of the L, and it would probably take me 7 hours to do it, and it would be near perfect. You would not see any layer lines at all. It would need minimal sanding, which is so weird to do that. I mean, that Loki crown didn't take me any time to sand. I broke off the supports, sanded the supports, and I was done. And then primed it, and it was done. I've sold so many of those too.
See, the one that the 3D print that I got known for around my community. Remember the Groot flower pot thing?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Baby Groot.
Mm-hmm.
It was really popular there for a while. I probably made $2,000 on that file alone.
Oh yeah.
And I was only selling them for like $20 a piece.
Oh yeah.
Not painted. Not painted.
Oh yeah.
Like it was crazy. I could. Oh yeah, Baby Yoda. Yeah.
Baby Yoda. I sold so many of those. It wasn't even funny. That was a hot ticket at one time. They were like, "I want a Baby Yoda." I'm like, "Okay, pay me the money for it." And that was done. That Baby Yoda was done on the Anycubic, and it was that only took like 7 or 8 hours type thing. Those were pretty popular at one point, and I like I said, mostly I just do it. Pay me my time and materials, and I'm good to go. I don't care about anything else. I mean, resin is becoming harder to get now, so I mean it's getting more and more of a challenge to get because everybody's buying it. I mean, even the PLA. I know that people were limiting PLA to be bought too because everybody was buying it up for masks and stuff for the pandemic.
Well, and it seems like some of the PLA stuff, if you look hard enough, you can find good deals too.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I know that one time because I usually buy either Overture or one other brand, I can't remember, and everybody was limiting, like you can only buy 2 rolls at a time within a certain time frame because supply was limited. Which I wouldn't be surprised if it would start getting limited again with shipping and everything going on.
Yeah. All right. So, do you have any other questions for me?
Nothing was about it. I was just curious what you were printing now, because that was, the whole thing.
Yeah. No, I print out a little bit of everything. It's not, I mean, this isn't a 3D print, but it's like pig. I actually finished this guy this weekend, but like I put I glossed the eyes this weekend and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So like, and I just airbrushed it, and this is like, what do they call it? That ceramic pottery.
Oh yeah.
So that's a Christmas present. So we'll see.
Does anybody in the audience, because I know they got people there, make any questions for me? It could be from painting to conventions to hobby. I'll take anything. I don't have a problem. So if anybody has any questions
I
there
think
for
I've
us,
been showing
my nose
up most of the thing.
is itching. Allergies are crap around right now. So, what games have you been playing? You been playing
What?
any?
So I don't. I've kind of played Age of Sigmar a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I really haven't been playing the games. I've just been painting up the figures and doing that part of it. Because
Yeah.
it's crazy. Like an Age of Sigmar, I think is a little bit easier to understand.
How long have I been in the hobby? I'm pretty old. I remember GW when the Space Marines were just metal, and I remember Space Dwarves. I've been around pretty much since the beginning of like a lot of companies. I mean, I remember getting Ralpartha miniatures to paint for my D&D games. You know, I played D&D in the um late 70s, early 80s when it was just coming out type thing, and it was still considered the devil type thing. How have you only done the one genre? I've done everything. The only thing I haven't done, and which I'm getting into, sculpting. I've done some digital sculpting, but I've never done like clay sculpting.
I actually want to get into that too. I've got a bunch of the tools because of stuff I've picked up over the years.
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching I just hobby or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and then I've put it's custom heroes sculpting or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like they take the 12-inch like Marvel DC figures, and then they'll put them in different poses, glue it all together, and then clay sculpt whatever figure they're gonna do. It's pretty cool.
I've been painting miniatures and oh my gosh, 30 some odd plus years maybe. I mean, I'm 50 and I remember doing some of that stuff in my 20s. Cuz that's what we, painting our own D&D miniatures for our campaign. Oh yeah. Original first edition, basic D&D, I was there for that. Basic D&D, first edition, second edition, advanced, all of that stuff. I've been playing D&D back when you had the dice that you had to rub your crown in for the colors so you could see what the thing. Oh yeah, white metal cast figures. Yeah, definitely. Even lead figures at one point. So yeah, I remember those. I've been doing that I've been playing games for a long, long time. I still remember some of my first D&D stuff when I was like in, second and third grade. Still use the name of that character in certain campaigns. So I mean, I've been doing nerdy hobby stuff for a long time. Just never even thought about it. I remember going to this one store in the mall a long time ago when I lived in Texas, and seeing the D&D stuff because everything was a box set, and they had all the box sets on the wall and stuff, and then the glass shelf with all the D&D miniatures in it. I'm looking for an elf ranger. You got an elf ranger? Yeah, we got like two. Here's which one. I'm like, oh, I'll take that one. I remember that as a kid type thing.
So Warhammer's been around since what, the early 80s, right? Or before that?
Let's see. Let's do the old Google.
I mean, because I know it's been around for a long, long time.
1987.
87. Okay,
Yeah.
I knew 80s.
I knew it was the 80s, but I remember getting into that back when it was, the models were. I mean, we look back at them now, and we're like, damn, those were ugly as sin.
Yeah.
Tome of Horrors, yeah, it'll kill people. Oh yeah. I have the old what was it, Castle Greyhawk, and I've held on to that for a long time. Castle Greyhawk's a fun, stupid adventure. Um, yeah, the Tomb of Horrors is particularly it'll wipe a party in no time. If you can ever get a copy of Castle Greyhawk, get a Castle Greyhawk, get a copy of that. One of the adventures in it is it's just a bunch of adventures that you take your characters through. And one of the adventures is you have to take a beholder to a ball gown party and teach them how to dance, type thing. And it's so stupid funny. Indiana gnome, a gnome that has a fedora and a whip that runs through the dungeon. Hilarious. So it's really stupid. Like your characters could die instantly. One of the things in there is you can declare yourself that you're marketing yourself. And so you declare that you're marketing yourself and your character disappears. And what it is your character gets turned into an action figure to be sold somewhere in Castle Greyhawk. It's so stupid. It's not even funny. The Indiana gnome is one of my favorite parts of that whole thing. All of a sudden you hear a crack of a whip and the Indiana Jones theme, and a gnome runs by looking like dressed like Indiana Jones holding a gold statue. And he's like, watch out, they're behind me. And of course your characters are like flabbergasted, and all of a sudden a bunch of goblins dressed in Nazi outfits come up and goes, "Where is the Indiana gnome?" So you have to deal with goblins trying to find Indiana gnome. So I mean, there's a ton of get that one if you can get a physical copy of it. Get it. It's a good classic. It's a good stupid classic. You just make characters, and you just have a great time being stupid the whole time.
So Mopar, are you still watching? Let's see if he responds here in a minute. But anyway, I wanted to tell you thank you for coming on.
No problem. Anytime.
It's been a blast talking to you this last pretty much hour and a half.
No problem.
And I will talk to you in a couple minutes offline.
Uh-huh.
Okay? I have to do next week's show and figure something out real quick.
Okay.
So I will talk to you offline in a minute, okay? So, Mopar, I need you to contact me this week. I might need you to fill in next Saturday. From reading the comments today, Terry is supposed to be next week's guest. So I don't know the whole issue. But would you be able to fill in if he's not able to? I guess is the question. Like I still have to, like I said, I don't know the whole story, but I figured I'd ask you, see if you wanted to fill in. Let me know, and I will let everybody know what's going on midweek. But other than that, just for me, I did get the pig done, and then here's the car. Oh, that wasn't a bottle of paint. Thank God. And then I've got paint on the car, so that's kind of what I've been working on. But yeah, I'll talk to you here in a little bit, dude. Yeah, I would appreciate it if you can do that. But I will get your earmuffs. Hey, yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's coming out pretty good. But like I said, I will see you guys probably next week, and I'm out of here. Have a good weekend, guys, and I will see you later.